Well, I love starting on time, and we have like 1 minute. I imagine there's gonna be some more people showing up, so I'm gonna just start with some blah blah blah, and then we can give the rest of the time to the topic at hand. I'm Robert Trent. I'm Executive Director of Sierra Commons. I've known most everybody here. Welcome. Thanks for coming. This is a part of a series, Lunch and Learn series, that we do. A sporadic series. We don't have another one on the books, but thanks for being on the email list, and you'll get notification. Anyone have any feedback on something they'd like to see, topics they'd like to see covered? No? Technology, maybe?
I'd be happy to give.
I want to do
web development.
cybersecurity,
Cybersecurity.
having been hacked this
Oh.
week, so. that'd be fun.
Okay,
And accessible websites too.
that's cool.
Accessible isn't like accessibility.
Yeah.
Like ADA, cool.
Yeah.
I used to do that.
Yeah, see, perfect.
Uh-huh.
See, we have a web designer that does all that, but I think it'd be good for just general knowledge.
Okay, noted. We have R&D communications in mind to do a presentation. Actually,
Okay.
Ethan might be here for them, so
Perfect.
great. I know you're in the marketing because you're here and you're marketing people. So that's that. It is high noon. Welcome. Feel free, if you did bring some food or whatever, feel free to eat. This is Jessie Walk. You probably all know her, but if not, she's awesome. Could you say that? Jessie's awesome. Does tons of social media. And one of the things I was thinking about this morning, so I'm like, wow, Jessie actually, I think, started in actual, like, remember print media? Remember that stuff? So you made the switch to social media, but it's a good background to have.
Mhm.
And film festival, working with is it the new Presidio Park? What's their?
The Presidio Trust.
Presidio Trust in San Francisco, doing all kinds of stuff. So I'm gonna this is an hour, it's more of a conversation, Jessie's leading it. And I just really ask that, I know some of you have social media businesses, some of you are, everyone's here for different reasons. But just try not to go on too much and keep your thoughts succinct so that everyone can have a chance to participate in this awesome conversation. There is a bathroom that's just like out here, and I'm pointing to it. It's over there in the main building. Watching stuff. And if you haven't had a chance to use that cool clipboard that has a sign-up sheet and or the Venmo QR code, we survive on donations of generosity of people like you. So please try that out. I appreciate it. And
Yeah,
taking
thanks,
this-
Robert.
Yeah, this is being recorded for people that couldn't make it. So just to let you know that.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks everyone for being here. This is so fun, and I know so many of you and adore most of all of you. Yay, so yes, I did start in print media. I went to school to be a journalist and studied literature and went straight into publishing newspapers, magazines when I got out of college. And that was the thing that I knew that I was going to do when I was in 4th grade. Like, I just knew I was going to be a writer. I loved it so much, and magazines in particular. And then when the recession hit, my industry literally dried up overnight, and it was so tragic. And I think I'm still healing from that, to be honest. But I was I had moved back here with the idea that I was going to go back to LA. I had been all up and down the West Coast and on the East Coast. And I was like, oh, I had started a magazine with some of my friends that was in kind of a arts, culture, and creativity magazine. And we were doing big concerts in Los Angeles. And so I thought, oh, I'll just stay here for a little bit. And then it's been like 16 years. So a little bit turns into a lot, right? And so like Robert said, I took my skills like writing and storytelling and my love of design, because that comes with magazines and everything, is that I took that and, social media at the time, that was like right when Facebook opened it up to everybody, right? Like, it wasn't just college kids. And I literally started the Facebook pages for every single organization in Nevada County, like I hands down, like, I mean, I think I even did the ERC, like, okay. And and it was a bit of an uphill battle of like people being like, oh, you know, this is just a fad, like who's gonna need this? This seems silly, right? Which we all know it's not the case now. But I think one of the things that has always served me well is just because I like stories, and that's how I've been able to use that in multi facets of my life, like the film festival. It's like I wasn't a trained filmmaker, but I understand what a good story is, right? And what it looks like, what it should look like, and all those kind of things. So over the last 15 years, I have done social media and marketing PR for the Miners Foundry, Variable Land Trust, the Chamber of Commerce. I've even started the city's social media, Wild and Scenics, the hospitals. I could probably go through a lot of them. There's a lot of them. And so I have a lot of just kind of like, you know, background knowledge, that kind of stuff. And then just most recently, so in 2020, I was like, I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. I don't want to be an independent contractor. AB5 had just passed, and I was like, this is it. I'm just going to work on film festival. And I got a call from some friends who work at the Presidio Trust, which is a national park site in San Francisco. And they were like, hey, we need an online community manager. Would you be interested? And I was like, oh man, I can't say no to that. It's like all the things I love in life, right? Like the outdoors, history, nature, doing good in the world. So I said yes. And so I work for them part-time, and I also work part-time for the film festival. So if you add that up, that's 64 hours. Yeah. But it's great. It's fun. So when Robert, sorry. Is it
I wasn't
hot?
sure if that was blowing hot air.
Yeah, are you
Oh,
hot? We can open up the windows or the doors.
It feels
What?
like warm air because it's humid.
Sorry, Jessica.
No, I totally agree. I'm like,
You grab the controller up there. Sure.
I literally thought we were gonna be outside, so I dressed warm. But yeah, so when Robert asked, like, he wanted to do a discussion on how to find and hire a content creator for social media, I thought, wow, I've never been asked that, because usually it's always like, how do you do social media? And because I do get a lot of calls of people like, so like literally the National asked me last week, they're like, do you have anybody who's high, you know, that you could recommend as somebody to do social media for us? And it's always hard because like the good folks are always snatched up. And also I'm not opposed to like, you know, outsourcing. I mean, I think there's lots of opportunities with, I mean, my bookkeeper lives in Fresno because there was no bookkeepers in Nevada County. So I think that, you know, reviewing like the possibilities of finding folks from afar, I think is totally good. And again, like this is meant to be discussion. So if you have particular questions or, you know, I'm just going off of like my experience and my professional experience on that stuff. So I think one of the things, and you know, I've actually hired several people to do social media for me, because sometimes, especially when it comes to the film festival, it's like I'm paying filmmakers and I've got all this other stuff. I don't have time to do the day-to-day social media stuff. So well, and that's always really interesting when that's what you do, right? And then you hire someone to do it and you're just like, so I think like when you go into like hiring or thinking about what you want for your social media, a good way to start thinking about it is like, is it written content? Is it photo content? Is it video, or is it graphic design? Or is it kind of like all of those things? And so, you know, depending on what kind of business you have, it could be a little bit of both, or you could lean a little bit heavier into one of these areas. And so, and also how social media evolves and changes, like, you know, there's the whole, with the reels on Instagram, it's like, I mean, we all kind of became video content creators like overnight. And that was that was jarring for a lot of us. So, you know, that's the kind of thing is like, how do you want your brand or you or your company to be represented? And I think that it's a good way for you to think about it, because then when you're looking for someone, you're gonna wanna see who's got certain strengths, right? Like, are they a really strong writer and a poor, you know, photographer? And then maybe you can find a good photographer to take photos and that person can have, you can use their words, right? Or maybe they're just really great. I've actually never found someone who made videos and was a good writer, so. So, you know, those are the kind, and then also graphic designers, they think way different, right? Like, if you want to have like these beautiful, eloquent, like lovely stories about something that's, you know, your brand or you or your company or whatever, you know, graphic designers they're trained to put things, information into very like visual, quick, easy, you know, ways to like snackable ways of you know, taking in information. So starting there, and then also what's your budget, you know, like be realistic. I found this little like infographic that shows like what's the rate of what you should be paying people, which I found really interesting. Because I'll be honest, how I determined how much I needed to make was from this woman, Nancy Shanto, many years ago, who would like figure out how much you need to make and then figure out how many hours you want to work. And then that's how much you need to get paid. So I thought that was interesting because I've actually never gone off industry rate, right? I just did it like how I, yeah, I ran out of the beef on this one. But, so this is kind of interesting and something you can like look at. So for the longest time, especially with nonprofits, so like me coming from nonprofit world, I oftentimes end up working in their budgets. So, you know, you end up saying $1,500 a month and being very clear about like what you'll do for those $1,500, and then you start to creep, right? Which is fine if you feel okay about like, you know, donating your time and services, which I've always felt that way. But if you don't, which is totally fine, and there's no shame in any of that, it's all hustle, I get it. You know, I think that's it's like a happy medium of working with your client on their budget and then also making sure that you get paid what you need to get paid, because you are a huge asset. You should be making more than $25 an hour, especially if you're even a contractor and paying 35%. So what's your goals too? Like, you know, when you've got social media, like I look at everybody in this room and I know like some of the stuff that you guys are doing, you know, are you there to sell products? Are you there just to grow your audience? Are you trying to increase your brand awareness? Do you feel like telling your story is the most important part? Are you there to connect with your audience, or are you trying to do all of the above? And, you know, at different times of the year, you're doing different things too, especially if you're selling products. Like we all know, like between now and Christmas, it's gonna be sell, right? But how do you creatively, you know, tell that story so it's just not buy this now? And then, so this is a really good example, like how to hire someone. And I think we can all share our stories on, you know, we've got good examples, maybe not so great examples, but I think clear communication is the utmost importance. Be very clear about the scope of work. That saves you and saves that other person. I think I've never gone into anything without a contract, you know, me personally. I think just being able to understand real clear and concise, like what it is you're doing, how many posts. I mean, it could be so minuscule, but at least everybody understands like, hey, it's 4 to 5 posts on all 3 platforms once a week, or it's, you know, 2 videos and 3 posts every 2 weeks or something like that. So you're really, really clear. So even when the people who work for the film festival or work on projects that I hire out for social media, I will actually do like a nice calendar. And I think that that's really important to say, hey, every week I want to see this, or these are the kind of areas that I want to make sure that we emphasize or we touch on. I want, you know, I think having those opportunities to schedule in moments where you kind of look at like KPIs, like key performance indicators. So that's something that we do at the Presidio because it's all based on us hitting our KPIs, and they are super insane about that. Like the number of reports that I run every week, because we need to know who's coming to the park, what are they doing in the park, how much money are they spending in the park, where did they come from, you know, what's their demographics, what's their socioeconomic backgrounds. I mean, it gets down to the very finite, and you know, the people above and above and above and above me, that's what's really important when it comes to budgets. So that might be like next level in this scenario, but I do think, and I do make, and maybe begrudgingly, all the people who work for me, I do make STU reports at the end, because I think everybody should know if it worked or didn't work. You know, and it's a learning moment for all of us. Deadlines, I think being real clear about what your deadlines are and when you want things and how you want it delivered is so important, especially if you're working with friends. Ryan's my friend and we work together.
Make deadlines.
Oh my God, Ryan's always on, he makes deadlines, he makes sure I make the deadlines. You know, and then going back to your budget, like making sure like that person's very clear that you only have X amount of dollars and you can't go beyond that, right? Like and this has happened to me, and this is literally my biggest pet peeve, is when people do things and then they say, well, I worked 100 hours over, and you're like, well, why did you not tell me that you needed to work over hours? And this should have been upfront, not downstream. And you don't want to be caught in this kind of scenarios. And then also, like, how much are you going to pay and how are you going to pay? So is it hourly? Is it monthly? Is it a project based? Is it like 50% upfront? Is it 50% afterwards? You know, I think that is, I've always found like monthly increments is the best. I also think that, it's hard for clients to, like, especially if you're just starting out, to prepay you because they want to see, you know, your work. But I also think that it's kind of crazy on, you know, a contractor side to like put forth a month's worth of work and wait to get paid. And like, you know, the city, I wait 30 days because that's how the billing cycle works. But, you know, I think you just got to figure out what works for you and who you're working with. Yeah.
Question or comment about
Sure.
budget?
Yeah.
Just kind of clarifying, you know, we're talking about how much a business might be paying an independent contractor.
Mhm.
Outside of that, there might be ad dollars
Mhm.
to be allocated to that budget too, so just thinking about.
Oh, yeah,
Within the
absolutely.
budget, there's different ways to spend.
Oh, yeah, and in your budget, your social media person could just be your social media person, right? You could have like a photographer that you have to pay on top of your social media person. You have a designer that you have to pay on top of your social media and your photographer. And you could have, you know, a videographer as well. And like, so not every social media person comes with like a strategic mastermind, right? Which is like my forte, that's the thing I like, is strategy. And if I didn't have to like do posts every day of the week, I would be so much happier, but that's just, you know, part of the game. But, you know, so sometimes having that extra person, which would probably be like a social media consultant, maybe there's some folks in this room that would rather just do strategy than the actual nitty gritty of like planning out ads and writing content and that sort of thing. You know, that's another person. So it can all add up real fast. And there's very few unicorns that are all of these things. So yeah, so places to promote your position. These are just some ideas. You know, almost every gig I've ever gotten came from someone I know. I've never applied for a job and got it. Oh, Sundance.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's always been somebody I know within my local network. And so, you know, when Robert says, hey, do you know other people who do social media, that means a lot, right? Because he's connected to a bunch of people and I'm connected to a bunch of people and Gil's connected to a ton of people. So, you know, having us know about who's out there doing stuff is great. Also, on the flip side, if you do a really crummy job or you screw somebody over, that will follow you all the way around town. So, you just kind of have to, you know, make sure you go into
Can I
it.
interject something?
Yeah,
So this whole social media directory thing that I'm gonna put together, which is up on the website, by the way. I get asked a lot, like, you know, any social media people, and like, we work with a social media person. And I'm not gonna give her name out. I know she's busy and also she's really good. There's gonna be something that holds really tight to my chest because it's hard to find somebody that's really good. So hopefully there's some really good people
yeah.
here.
So when I left all of my nonprofits, Lauren Bertoli, who had started out as an intern with me, she took over all of my stuff and she almost doesn't have time for me now, which just grates me so bad. But, you know, I'm glad for her because, you know, she's able to make a living and take care of her family and that's awesome. But, yeah, I mean, it doesn't take much to, you know, that was again, going back to like, how much do you want to get paid? It's like, well, how much do you need to make a month? And, you know, how many contracts can you have? Maybe there's like that one tenant contract that, you know, is substantial enough to pay your house mortgage and all those good things, right? That's different talk about economics, but, I think those are the kinds of things when you're an independent contractor, you're looking at that is like, and I think also when you're hiring somebody to know like, who else are they working for too, right? And in all my contracts, I do make sure, I should have brought a sample of a contract, but, I love contracts. And, is that it's, you know, to make sure that they don't take the content with them, right? Like you want to be able to make sure like you own all your stuff. They're never gonna, because they're gonna have access to a lot of personal things, right? And I mean, we can get into the weeds about some of that kind of stuff if you want, but you know, I think it's very good to keep yourself safe, make sure you have a lawyer look at it. So it's all legit and they are understanding too, like, you know, they can't walk off with your passwords or they, maybe, you know, it's when you were talking about ads too, there's credit cards involved and we can kind of get into nuts and bolts on how you can like circumvent some of that kind of stuff. So like they don't have your credit card and all that good stuff. But yeah, just to keep yourself safe for sure. And always get references. So, I can literally see 2 people right now who I didn't get references on, and I still kick myself. And I really think just a quick phone call, it doesn't have to be much, and just say like, hey, how'd this person work out for you? And that would have saved me so much grief, so much pain, you know, money. And it you know, I realize in the state of California, they can't tell you too much, but I think just so that they know that you're calling their references is enough to maybe like scare them into place or something. So, and also don't, you know, if it's in a small town, you can always just ask around too. Yeah. But yeah, it's not rocket science. It's just a lot of learned stuff over the years. And, you know, I'm sure you guys know lots more than I do, and you have lots to share around it. So again, I think the think tank that's in this room would be fantastic. If you guys have other things you want to share, if you have questions or anything in specific.
Hey, just for context, how many people here are social media professionals? Just raise your hand. And okay, and how many people here are looking to hire social media professionals? Cool, good mix. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. I always think it's weird when, sorry guys, but like to get into the business of social media, right? It seems like it's a means to an end, right? Like we need to have it, but then there's so many other things that come from it. Like what I have learned specifically through the film festival and through, I've also been to Californians for the Arts. So I love like advocacy groups like that. I love the power of like trying to connect people and stories and good things that are happening in the world. Which I think is harder and harder on social media because it seems like, it's like everyone wants to be a content creator and TikTok star and all those kind of things. And so, I'm sure there's other people out there that view social media differently than I do, but I think I try and look at the good side of it to do good with it, not sell schlocky things. Yeah.
How do you think about social media and search engine optimization? And are those two different people, or they often go hand in hand?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. To be honest, the SEO folks, I've always been like, I found them to be magical humans. Like I get that, especially for like in the work I have done, I haven't had to get too deep into SEO because we're not selling widgets. We're selling experiences and things like that. So I think that I have never found, and maybe you guys are the unicorns I'm talking about, I've never found a social media person that also is super up to date on SEO stuff either.
I would say they're different.
Yeah.
Almost always,
Yeah.
not always, but. And also SEO has been around forever,
Yeah.
longer than social media, of course it's evolved. But, I mean, you can get like down to an agent, a data engineer for SEO, like get down to like a really, really hardcore like that, compared to social media,
Yeah.
which is more specific.
So Ryan's a good example of like, Ryan has an app called FanMood that we've been using for the film festival, and we've been kind of like his prototype. So we do a lot of data, and that's where we're trying to really hone in on who our customers are. This is for the film festival. With the Presidio, we do a whole other slew of things, which I could go way deep and down into the coyote hole with you on that. And I'm sure a lot of folks would find it interesting, and a lot of folks would be like, it's not what I came for. Yeah, I think like, I echo what Ryan said. Yeah.
I'm gonna throw out a couple tips and things that are on the tip of my tongue. So when it can, like, you might get sticker shock when you see like, oh, the social media person charges this much money. Try doing it yourself is one way to look at it. Also, when they're especially if they're great content producers and photographers and all that stuff, I like sometimes I'll take a post, boom, it's basically my newsletter. And that's so nice. It's like I don't have to reinvent that. And it's like builds up good content archives that I can use in multiple areas. It's just, it might originate on social media, but then I can multi-purpose it. That's super helpful. When hiring a consultant, your platform, like whatever your business and your demographic, pick a platform, and then that social media professional should be proficient on that platform. If they just like, I do everything, that might not be the best. Like start out, pick 1 to 3 platforms and kill it, and then expand.
Yeah. That's a good point. The other things that I was thinking about, sorry to jump
Yeah,
off
it's
what
okay.
you're going, but that I didn't even think about in this is 2 things. One is, so a lot of different folks use kind of third parties, so like Sprout Social or Slack or Wednesday or Monday, whatever it's called, I forget. Monday. Well, we used it when you're during film festival. So it's nice to have someone who's proficient in that or is also can pick it up. So that's like basically a way for you. So like, for instance, the film festival, our folks do later, I think. And but so with the Presidio, we do all Sprout Social because the reports are so robust. It's very expensive though. So like when you're thinking about, and then Facebook doesn't want to have all these third parties in there, so they've like really amped up the meta business stuff. And so I think it's good to make sure the person that you're working with is really fluid in those areas and or is able to adapt easily to it, because it helps you schedule out stuff, but it's really for you to report. And then also what they call social listening, right? To see like what's going on out there. We do a lot of that. So like who's talking about what, is it in a positive light? What seems to be coming up more in the hashtags and all that kind of stuff. And it's a little bit easier than going to every single different platform, scrolling through Instagram and like commenting on people's comments and then moving over to Facebook and commenting or whatever. And that's what I do with, you know, the Presidio is like, you know, I get to be like the cool aunt and be like, hey, welcome to the park. And so the other thing too is A/B testing. We do this all the time, and I think it's really, and I should have did this earlier on in my career because then I could have been super pro about it. But I've been doing a lot of this over the last 5 years, which is taking posts and content and seeing what works best for your audience, right? So like taking a post and maybe it's like, you know, Lori Jo does all these beautiful posts that are very thoughtful and well written. And so what if she, you know, one photo is of a nature post, one photo is of like more like massage sound bath, like what is intriguing to her audience more visually, or it can also be, you can do A/B testing with audiences too. So like if you're trying to see if a message hits with an audience in particular, you can always do one for one audience and the other one for the other. And that's all in your, and then you can boost those, so you can pay extra for that, which is when you're really gonna start to see your bang for your buck on that. And that doesn't have to be a ton of money. It could be like 20 bucks or something for the week. And you do that, you know, all through the Meta business and Facebook and the ads in Facebook. And yeah, I mean, we haven't even gotten into like Reels,
Mhm.
Instagram stories, and I don't know anything about TikTok, so don't talk to me about TikTok.
What about talking about, like there's something about, I made a post, you put it up there and it looks good and it has the right stuff, but then there's the social part
Right.
of social media and what to, when you're looking to hire someone, what to look for in their ability to
Like,
create the engagement in the
Oh.
social
yeah,
activity.
well, I think I mean, what I'm hearing is a little bit of like an influencer in that, but like, I don't know about those people. But I mean, they're great and awesome, but I think they also got their own MO, they got their own thing going.
Yeah.
But I think also one of the things is, you know, is do they align with what your business is? And you can also understand a little bit more about, I mean, we're always trying to figure out why certain posts do better on our various platforms, and we can dig super into it. But I think, you know, so I'll give an example. We recently hired someone to do the Arts Council social media, and she's amazingly personable and she has a great presence, and she's really grown social media just through her presence, right? And that's something to think about though, like, is she on brand for the Arts Council? Is that like, we want someone to be that spokesperson for us? And, you know, I think as a group, like we said, yes, that's fine, but that's something you have to think about as well. Like, is that, you know, there's a little bit of, you have to think like, well, if that person leaves and they become the face of my brand. So like, you know, it could be, you know, it's a little scary. Did you have an addition to that?
I was just kind of curious, because I'm a coaching consultant,
Uh-huh.
so it's my voice, my
Yeah.
thoughts and everything. So how do I even think about going about having somebody else take that and be able to be me when I'm not there?
Yeah,
Like
That's a good-
to respond to that
Yeah.
is, one way that's actually pretty easy is you could just outsource. For example, you take 5-10 minute video explaining something, and then maybe you pay someone to cut that up into reels or something like that. So it's still your voice, but you don't have to deal with the hours of, adding the little nuances of on the video to get that engagement that you might be looking for. But I mean, yeah, it's definitely, you wouldn't want to outsource that, like your actual voice, if that's your service for sure.
totally. Kay, did you want to add?
Well, I think it's, if you're a writer and you're imaginative and you can relate to the topic and the person that you're trying to emulate, you can, over time, talk in that voice. You could, you can be that voice. So if there's an intimacy to it and a trust, but I mean, I've been the voice of many EDs in this county in the arts world. writing their, their speeches and their content and their brochures and whatever, but, and it's always been different depending on who the ED is, what you're saying, which kind of goes to the point like, when the ED leaves, then what are you left with? That ED's presence? And are they then the face of the organization, or is the organization its own entity? So you can run into all kinds of personalities, EDs, content creators, the people you hire to do ads. I think like Mike Austin is doing that big kind of snarky campaign for Music in the Mountains, which worked for a while. But I think you can find a person who can speak in your voice. If,
Yeah.
don't you agree?
I agree. So with the Presidio, I am a white cis lady, right? So, one of the things that have come up, and I was the one to really voice, is that I feel like there's certain topics that I don't feel appropriate in discussing on behalf of the organization. And so we've actually hired a second person to add to that conversation and, and probably add a lot more than I ever could. And I think that that's really important when we think about like making sure that all voices are being represented and heard, is that I can't make it up. I really can't, right? Certain things. I don't have, that's not my experience. And I also don't have a right to talk about certain things. So then you gotta go find that right person. Yeah, in the back.
One of the interesting challenges for my clients has been relative to even getting into social media or hiring this person is that the better the job is done by the social media professional, the more of that communication winds up landing on the desk of the person who's expert in the business, because the professional content creator isn't expert in the business. So how do you imagine a person who says, I know I need to be on social media, but I don't know how to hire somebody, and I don't want the workload that comes on the back end. How do you address that as though there's a logical path away from that, so that the person's not buried with their own success
Yeah,
at social media, which is taking them away from their everyday business?
right. Yeah. Is this a technical company?
It's all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
It's any entrepreneur who doesn't have extra time in their day.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's the conundrum of it, right? Like if you don't have a staff that's like your customer service to answer questions, right? And I've been the front person where everyone's coming to me about ticketing questions, which isn't necessarily the most exciting, but it's true. And like I can't answer on behalf of Ryan on certain things about the app. Like he's gonna have to be the one to answer it, or there's gonna have to be, there's certain things as you stay with the company, you'll get to learn, right? And I'm sure the questions will come up over and over again. Maybe there'll be like one, random new question every once in a while, but if you stay with a place long enough, you'll know the answer to a lot. So like I've been with the Presidio almost 3 years now. I had to ask a lot of questions that first year, and I had to go to my boss because my boss knew the answers to all of them. Now I rarely have to actually ask, unless it's like we're positioning something that needs to get okayed first, right? Because it's the federal government.
But what if that goes over the scope of work and the entrepreneur now is in conflict with their own person who's creating, let's just at least say, communication success,
Yeah.
but not necessarily in business success.
Yeah,
So now there's a real ongoing conversation about, this hourly rate or this structure. How do we do that it's not about the words basis?
yeah.
Would that come back to the objective of the use of social media as a communication? Like, is it for business development or is it for community? And if it's not for business development and you don't have time with it for it, then you don't have to do it.
So create non-interactive content and it's just social media.
No, I'm just saying,
Very-
like, if you as an organization need to focus on business development and the social media platforms and community are not providing that, then why are you spending your time on it, period?
Yeah, or I would just send them to support at and let support at deal with it. And if, hopefully as the entrepreneur has some sort of support system to do
They're
with
not
it.
support that.
Yeah, yeah.
You're talking.
Yeah.
Yes. No,
Add info, add.
Yeah. Sure.
I have two questions. One is, what kind of education or background do you see most often with good social media managers? That, and then I can save my second question for after you answer this
Yeah,
one.
I don't think you need to, I mean, a command of the English language is good, you know, or bilingual too, like that's something else, you know, that's the second person that's getting hired at the Presidio, like. They speak Chinese and Spanish. I do not speak Chinese or Spanish, you know, like these are great assets. I think like it can be anyone. It's just if they know how to like write a story, connect, or if they're visual storytellers. So it's like, you know, either or. I don't think you need to go to school for social media.
Okay. So I,
That could just be my opinion. I apologize if that was rude.
no, it's okay. It kind of goes into a little bit of my second question, because as a social media manager for a tech company,
Uh-huh.
looking to gain confidence and strategy, do you have recommendation around resources like books or like, you know, I know you could like, I could spend forever on LinkedIn, like in their learning center, and I can go to Instagram and like do all that. Is there any like one little umbrella place or things you recommend about how to, you know, just to gain confidence around what you're doing and how you're doing it?
Jab, right hook. When you hear the music.
What's the name of
Jab, right hook. When you hear the music.
it? Okay,
Very bad. Mandatory. He'll basically encourage you to explain to you all the social media means from Facebook all the way down to TikTok. You just gotta go into that little explanation.
awesome, thank you.
Well, I would also suggest something that I do is just keep a swipe file of other companies that I think are doing a good job. Just not to steal, but to say, oh, look, you know, this is like a really interesting campaign or something like that, just to have, you know, when you're feeling and not feeling like inspired or stuck, just always have something that you can turn to and get inspiration from.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, I get this, it's a, daily social media examiner. Do you guys ever subscribe to that?
I do, it's really good.
Yeah, it is. Isn't it nice? I feel like it makes me smart every day. So it's, it's a news, yeah, it's a newsletter that you get every day. And it just keeps you super up to date on what's going on in social media marketing world. And it saves me so much time because, you know, things are evolving and changing. And so it's nice to have, it kind of spelled out for me. And if they don't have it, they link to it and you can, you know, go deeper into. And they talk about content too. Like, I think yesterday they had one about like 7 things that you don't ever do on social media. So of course I read that one. But, you know, I think it's those are.
And it was called the daily social.
Yeah,
media.
social media examiners. Yeah.
Thank you.
And I have no idea how I found that. You know, sometimes I do like, when I do my own end of the year audits for like me personally, which that seems really nerdy, but I will look at other, you know, like what are the books I should be reading or what are the websites or who are the people that are the foremost authorities in these areas that I should pay attention to. And I try and do that.
Mhm.
There's another book I would recommend to you. It's called The No Fluff Ads Manager by Sarah May Ives.
Yeah, that's
You
a
can
good
find it
one,
on Amazon.
Thank you.
Yes.
Is this somewhere that you can find like a trend report as well, this daily social media examiner, because there's this in all under industries. Yeah, okay, so you can see like, hey, we're transitioning to Reels, get ready.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
because that was a terrifying
Yeah.
situation that.
I think it's socialmediaexaminer.com.
Yeah,
so
okay.
pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Whatever happened to Clubhouse?
Yeah, that's good.
So that's a question. So it's, I mean, cause now since people have space, you know, on Twitter, it seems like every time there's always a little bit of someone coming out. Instagram or all the little guys have to fight, oh, we need to make one like that too. And they want to try to take some of their window, just like they did with TikTok with Instagram Reels. I wonder if that's, if your spectrum yet on your side is
Yeah.
become a thing to you? Or
So,
probably not?
I have luckily not had to do any TikTok because the federal government can't buy a product that's made from China. So that's kind of cool for Presidio. But you know, we could do it for the film festival. We haven't gotten there. I mean, we did Snapchat and all those things too. Clubhouses, I've always found really interesting. I personally don't feel smart enough or like solid enough in my skill level to like open up these like discussions on things about that. But I think like there's lots of people out there that, you know, to schedule meetings, and we work with a producer who runs our residency, and she's had great luck with doing Clubhouse, which is basically, you know, it's another platform where it allows you to connect very quickly to the people who you're most interested in your area of focus, right? And so I think it's like cutting through like all of like, you know, the grandkids pictures and all the other kinds of stuff that's out there. And it's very industry based, and I think that's but in a more light-hearted-ish way than say LinkedIn, which seems more kind of means to an end, like, you know, job networking, and it is what it is. Where Clubhouse is maybe more, you know, exploration of ideas and concepts, and I think that would be like the modern day salon, right? Like you would have at your house and dinner party or something like that. So I think that if that's your jam and how you feel, like it definitely, you can utilize any platform and find your right audience for it. Just depends. You know, my friend Erin Thiem, who runs the In-Town Campground, owns it, and she's, you know, visit Nevada City and quite prolific. She's always been, it's all about consistency. So like if you delve in, it doesn't work, and you're like, oh, it takes time, right? Like I think it's always interesting when people want to like grow, like I want to, you know, I'm sure you feel pressure, like I want to like have 10,000 new, you know, at the end of the month, and you're like, good luck, that's not gonna happen, like, you know. And so I think just being consistent on whatever it is you're doing is best. But yeah, there's so many out there, and Clubhouse is cool. I like it for film festival stuff. Like there's all these great groups that I learn a lot in it. But also I belong to a film festival alliance where I get all my information once a week and I email to. So like it saves me a lot of time. Yeah, right.
I had one quick question, because you mentioned reporting with the stuff you're using from Presidio.
Mhm.
Is it common to give someone who's familiar with analytics or like actually evaluating the effectiveness of what they're doing, or is it more just like producing that work, kind of turning the wheel, if you will?
Do you
I mean,
get
Yeah.
to do some of that? I like it, actually. I
would
think it's
say,
fun.
yeah, Google Analytics, you can track to, you know, who's
Okay.
coming from your social media and specifically going, you know, to this link or buying this specific product.
yeah, we use campaign IDs, stuff
Yeah.
like that. And I wasn't sure, like, if you were hiring someone, if that's pretty common for them.
I
to,
would say
like,
it should be
kind of-
common.
It should be, right?
Yeah, again, like. That all comes down to vetting like the right person,
Right.
and but you know, most people can get somewhat up to speed on Google Analytics, especially if you're a business owner. Maybe take like a 2-hour course on YouTube and just, you know, poke around, because it is like with a lot of the meta stuff too. It's very dense, but you know, you really only 20% of the understanding is really kind of all you need to get a good idea of what is working and what isn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say, you know, most people calling themselves a social media manager or a consultant should definitely have a good understanding of metrics and how those metrics change over time too, because Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, they're constantly, you know, what impressions meant a
Right.
year ago isn't necessarily what they mean now. So understanding, you know, that's just an example. I don't think that's true. It could be, of course, it changes all the time, but understanding how things are changing and how they're measuring certain things too is always good to know.
Yeah. And it doesn't need to be a big company too, like
No.
you could have something like, I mean, Lori Jo's got a great website, she sells products, she could do like, you know, see like if her Facebook posts results in like, you know, 5 new things or 6 new transactions or something like that. So, I mean, it can be, you know, you can bring it down, or it could be, you know, for us, we do a lot of advertising because we're trying to reach underrepresented groups, right, in the Bay Area. And so a lot of it is about audience reach. And so that drills into so many different areas. But yeah, I think we could do you guys could do it. We could totally do something about metrics.
So a couple things came to mind. One, back to my last point about social, like the social media, that you could have a social media manager that does all the right things, the posts look great, it's up there. And there's not, like either there's a lack of interaction or there's interaction and it's not responded to. So I think that's another quality to look at when you're hiring a social media professional is it's great, you've posted it, so what? In some ways, it's about getting the conversation, the social part going, which is not always easy. From my experience on some, like I look at this here comments page, I'm like, damn, that's looking good. Like we have some solid posts and stuff, and some of them don't have a lot of likes or interactions or any. And it's difficult to like see that. It's like, oh, this is awesome, great content. And then people will come by, or I just meet people in town. Hey, Robert, I hear you're doing this or that, or like pretty regularly, they're seeing it. They're just not interacting with it. So, yeah. Yeah. And so it's like, okay, it is paying off. So if and when you hire a social media professional and it's like, oh, it's more than I want to pay, but I know I need to be on social media. Oh my gosh, it's been 3 months. I'm not seeing the sales. I'm not seeing the results I want. It takes time. It takes a lot of time. And there's benefits that are happening that you're not immediately seeing. So just be aware of that.
Yeah, that's kind of like the brand awareness part, right? Like, it's like what we talk about in fundraising, the 7 touches. It's like on the 7th touch, they finally buy from you or they donate, but it takes, like, maybe they saw it on social media or they heard a friend talk about it or they heard it on the radio, or it's like sometimes we don't necessarily know exactly what it is that drives the customer to do something. But yeah, that is true. That's definitely true.
Oddly enough, I've seen this thing of consistency. It's more of the fact that just like you driving past a billboard, you gotta just keep on looking at it. Oh, there it is. Oh, there it is. Because after a while, people get in their head, walking their head. Oh, there's a deer right there. Better move out the way. Oh, the same deer is coming through there. Move out the way. Deer, why don't you move out the way? After a while, you have to keep letting it just keep hitting in the head. But I've had a show where a comedy show I've done here, and we've done 3 months so far. And we're trying to get the interaction. Okay, go by. Come on, go by. We've even got to the point where like, we're gonna make posters. It's like, why are we gonna make posters? Social media, because we live in an older area. People still want to see the dang thing in their hand. They don't want to look at their phone.
Agree, absolutely, for sure. Yeah.
I think also there's a really big difference between just posting on your page and actually advertising, because you can put a ton of content that's super amazing on your page, but if nobody sees it, then nobody is going to know what's going on. So being able to reach the people that you're looking for is really important. And especially in a small area like our town, you don't need a lot of detailed targeting to get it out there. Like, you just need people to see it. And it's crazy how many old people really are on social media too. Like, I know people, I'm not even really on TikTok very much, but I've met a lot of like much older generation who are on TikTok. I'm like, okay, it's everywhere. Like, it's infiltrated everything.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And it's pretty cheap too. It's not, not to dog on print media, which I love, but an ad can be $1,000 and $1,000 on online can go really long way.
I would love to make a comment on the gentleman's question in the back earlier about call to actions, because if you're putting an ad out there and you're not ready to receive feedback or comments or something, oftentimes, at least in my business, we don't discuss like you said, if you're a coach or something, I'm not going to be answering the questions that you would answer. I'm going to send them to you to have a call. And then you would be the one, right? You would be the one who would make that sale. So if you're running an ad, you need to have a clear idea of what you want the outcome to be. And that should be discussed in the strategy, because there's no point of running something if you're not ready to take on those people. Like, if you want clients, you need to be ready for them. Or if you want more business, you have to be able to be ready to hire a salesperson to take that business on, right? Because the social media person is an expert in social media, not in whatever your business is. So being able to, be prepared to take that that next step for yourself, I think is
It's a
really
call to
important.
action in the middle part with saying thank you and people who just, say random things about whatever's going on in the business that require some sort of interactivity to show that somebody cares.
Right,
Those
right.
are not salesperson things, they're not customer service things, they're just human things. And it takes a human person to actually make those thought connections so we can get to this at a time when somebody actually is ready to make a purchase because they trust.
Right.
So I appreciate what you're saying, that there's a journey between I did a post and now they want to buy.
Oh,
There's
definitely.
interactions along the way.
Oh,
They
definitely.
have
That's why
nothing to do with technical or anything else, but they need to be,
a call to action doesn't need to be a sale. It can be a, hey, book a call with me so that we can discuss all of your
well, that's
questions.
close too. You're closing, and I'm saying there's a progression to get to that close.
Hmm.
Chum the waters.
Right.
I mean, not everybody does a close on that first call. Sometimes it's, if you have a higher end product, then they need to find out about what all that information is. But it really depends on what you're selling, right? Like if you have a sales page, that might give them all the information that they need. But yes, oftentimes if you're doing like a messenger app, you need to have somebody reply to those comments. For sure.
Do you have a question? No, okay, yeah.
I just want to say, because I just saw someone leave. So my name is Jude. I'm starting a web development business for local businesses, and I would love to meet everyone who's a social media provider to get your contact information for myself, but also clients are going to start asking me for referrals. So if you're open to that, that would be awesome before you leave. And I think that leads me to my actual question for Jesse, which is how do you think about a contractor, someone that you're versus someone you hire? Because you're clearly hired by the Presidio. Where, how big do you get? Like when do you make that transition to now they're on the payroll, versus?
Yeah, I'm still a contractor with Presidium.
Oh.
Yeah. So, it's a good question. I think like that's a bigger question for your business because you're gonna start paying taxes on someone. So I mean, I think, there's pros and cons to all of it. And I'm sure there's something within the Sierra Comments that talks about the benefits of being a contractor and the benefits of being an employee. So, honestly, I have been a contractor for so long, I don't really know anything different. I do think it's better, and Gil can talk about it, economics. I do think it's better if you're an employee for the economics of the planet and the world. Because I think that there's a lot of, if you're I think, you're talking about entrepreneurs and stuff, and there's a lot of contractors, independent contractors in here. It's like, we're not really protected, it's like, with the insurance and with health insurance and just so much in life I think we should probably get back on, this is how much people should get paid and this is how much the cost of living is, and we should start paying people what they should get paid.
Yes.
Yeah. With that said, independent contractors like nice things about like, hey, I can work when I want and you can't tell me when I want to work. I mean, that was the joke, like the independent contractor will like give up a 9 to 5 so they can work 24/7. Yeah, so it's just personal preference and what's best for your company.
And I would say too, like, even as employees, in this media and marketing and fund development and all the kinds of worlds, you are working all the time. So I mean, I think it's almost easier as a contractor to set boundaries because at least you're not sitting in someone's office for 8 hours today and they're not, just giving everything that they can't do or figure out to you. Like, how do we, what do we say about this? And how do we create that? So I mean, I think we have more autonomy and probably more creativity as a independent contractor.
I mean, I don't know about tax base, we can talk about it, but
And something to keep in mind too, and especially if you're a smaller business, maybe you can't afford to bring on another person, is like when you choose to work with a social media person, like, for example, like I offer like package service. So, basically for 2 months, we talk strategy, we come up, we collaborate on that. I'll post, but then when I leave, there'll be templates in place, there'll be scheduling in place, there'll be things in place. So maybe you as the business owner have to spend an extra 2 hours a week Or, you know, you can kind of plug and play into the system that I've helped create for you. And that too can be a lot easier sometimes than, because, and also too, like you have to think like, okay, is this person gonna be with me? Like they're gonna create, you know, help me brand my social media content and work with me for the next 6 months to a year or whatever. But then when they go, you know, all of a sudden how do I maintain that image and that look that I've helped, you know, that I've created? So there's a lot of that too, that you can like maybe think about too and discuss like in those like initial calls, like, okay, well, what exactly, like, how are we gonna end this and what are like the timing and, you know, long term with this?
Yeah, there's a right person for the right time, right? So it's like, I like that I've always liked being the starter, right? Because then you're like,
Yeah.
and it's kind of fun because you're like, it again, it goes back to the things that I really like, which is strategy. So it's like, you know, starting stuff, and I also like clean up too. So that's kind of fun where I can just rebrand, redo, make it look nice, and, you know, get you back on track. Those are the kind of things that, you know, I'm in maintenance right now, and sometimes that's like kind of, it's a little boring. So I find a lot of things to do, but yeah, it's definitely, I like that packaging. That's a really smart thing. I wish I had done that. Yeah.
And it's really hard too, because most of the people that you're gonna be working for are not gonna be able to maintain what you do.
No, definitely not.
So, I mean, that maintenance part is a big factor, and even creating templates and timelines and all that stuff is so easy.
And you could do it all and they still want to do it.
I know.
If I had $1 for every time someone was like, Jesse, I'd be like, it's in that Google Drive and it's labeled with that.
Right, right. Maintenance is something that a lot of entrepreneurs and independent contractors are. They don't like that part. That's where the employees come in, you know, who are you gonna get to take my place when I leave, and how are you gonna structure it so they can use all these templates and
So true.
and to make it work?
So we got like 1 minute left. Anyone have a burner? Burning question? Go ahead, Nico.
Hi, my name is Nico. So one advice is really, I have from my own business and dealing with EDD, which is Employment Development Agency, is you really need to make sure you have a really good contract, very clear, and they have their own tool, they have their own hour, and they control a lot of things. So I had a big problem with my PR lady and EDD. EDD Basic took all the checks I wrote to 250 people and say they are all my employees. And I've been fighting that for 7 years now. I'm talking about hundreds of thousands of employees. So it's very emotional for me. So what they say, even my electric plumber, he has a contractor license with the state. And EDD say, okay, we want to see his tax return. We want to see he has other customers. So important your PR person have other customers. If your PR person only have you, then she or he is your employee.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
And you need to pay the 35% tax. You need to get all her his social security numbers, and you need to have all your package
Yeah.
paperwork.
And
like-
85 kind of helped clean that up because of the gig economy stuff. So
Yeah, have a good
Yeah.
accountant.
yeah.
Look over.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Nico. That was a good point.
Okay, folks, I love starting on time, love ending on time, so give it up to Jesse. Really appreciate it. Thanks, everybody, for coming out.